Graza, will you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Madam Clerk, can we do a roll call, please?
Chair Bybee,
Here.
Mayor Sheedy,
Here.
Mr. Squaga,
Here.
Mr. Chapman,
Here.
Ms. Keel, here, Commissioner Hill,
Here.
Mr. Murdoch,
Here.
Ms. Graza,
Here.
and Ms. Solder is attending another meeting. She'll be here shortly. So you have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on to item B, comments from the floor by the public. Do we have public comment?
None at this time, thank you.
I do have a comment. I'll go ahead under public comment if I may. I just want to congratulate Mayor Sheedy on becoming president of the United States Conference of Mayors. I used to go to those conferences as a kid, hard to get on those executive boards, and what a true honor for the city of Reno. And I just want to say congratulations. You're very
For the beautiful flowers, that was very, very kind, and I'm truly honored. But I was just telling Stephen, Reno, I mean, I could not escape it in Columbus. People kept saying, Columbus is beautiful. Reno, my God, we had so much fun. It was amazing. And I actually have 3 mayors that are coming back for their summer break that are staying in Reno for 4 days, and I'm going to Tahoe for 2. But I think that the fun factor sort of helped me get the nomination. So I really appreciate it. Yeah, right. When they come and get it.
Let me move on to item C, consent agenda. Do I need to? Yes. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. A motion by Mayor Sheedy.
Second.
Second by Mr. Murdoch.
I just have a question for clarification on the minutes. It's item 2, just on the sign, my favorite sign. Just want to refer to the minutes, reflection. So, because I did ask, we got cut off when I was on the Zoom last meeting. Was the motion to include the 60,000 for the sign? I saw that in the minutes, so I just want to.
So my recollection, I know Ms. Jager's on the phone, was that there was a $60,000 set aside as sort of a contingency if the RSCVA is required to pay for the sign. But I don't think that we committed to actually paying for the sign.
Yeah, so we did modify our capital reserves budget to pay $60,000 for the sign from that allocation of funds.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I'm sorry, who was the second? I'm sorry, I was up. Who was the second?
Mr. Murdoch.
Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on to item D. D1, executive update. Mr. Harris, with your last CEO update.
Last update. Mike, can you make sure that we can toggle this and open this up? That comes up. Thank you, Madam Chair. Board members, before we start, I just want to recognize our 3 board members who are going to be terming off today. This is their last meeting, 2 of which have been with me since the beginning. First off, Jessica, a little thank you for serving on the board. Appreciate that. Shannon Keel as well. Thank you for everything. And Silver is not here, so she's getting a few gifts. Let's Mike, we can pull that up so I can get started with it. You promised me in rehearsal this would be fine. So I'm not going to take a lot of time. There's just a few things I'd like to update you guys with. I think we got a little. All right, so we're going to go through some things here real quick just to update the board. This was included in the CEO report, which is not only in your packet that you have before you, but also in the CEO report that I sent to all the board members last night. Very proud on behalf of the staff to announce that we've been named one of the best destination marketing organizations in the country for the second consecutive year, back-to-back years by Smart Meetings Magazine. And as you can see, not only is our name in red, but look who we're referenced with people that were called out: Los Angeles, Miami, New York, Philadelphia. This is great work by the team to be able to have us recognized by industry leaders as one of the best organizations around, and very proud as I exit here that that is in place. I'm going to talk a couple quick things about some national trends that are happening. This is U.S. travel 2019 comparison on a national level. The travel spending on a national level, the first top line up here that you see, 3.6%, that is April compared to 2019. Great, now I've, Mike. So 2019, that trend by month, we were up by 3.6%, year to date, plus 4.1%. So overall, very, very positive numbers in that area. What's down, and you see in the red, if we stay, yes. The international travel is down nationally, and that is still a work in progress. That is something that's going to take a little bit more time to recover. We're not impacted as much from that in this region, but overall that is still a factor. When you then compare this against the previous year, when we look at the numbers, so again, spending, it was pretty much flat in April. Year to date, plus 6.7. So travelers are spending more year over year. And as you can see, the trend when it comes to the international travelers, it is up by 26 and 54% year to date. So air passengers up, overseas up, and hotel demand on a national level is up by 4.3%. This is calling out some specific things. When we do our marketing, we're looking at trends that absolutely have an impact on how we market and where we place and do things. And so when you talk about the next 6 months, travelers have committed to traveling at almost 90% still. So there's the hiccups that we are anticipating have not yet hit. It's pretty much flatlined. So the trend setting on a national level is still there without any major hiccups. When it comes to inflation, also inflation has not spiked yet in terms of altering people's intent to travel. And so we're still hovering around 28%, up 1% from the month before, and transportation costs certainly have not. And as you can see in the slide I'm going to show you, certainly we rely on California as a drive market for a lot of visitation. But again, that information when it comes to transportation costs hovering at 20%, that will impact their decisions. Historically, the information going back to 2016 in our room tax collections for calendar year, when I came here in 2020 amid the COVID pandemic, we've recovered really nicely, setting records each year. We're currently at $141 million in room tax collections January through April of this year. We're $8 million over a year ago. And so if we're flat for the rest of the year, we will set yet another record in room tax collections. But again, we've got a few months to go, and May could be a little soft. We don't have all of our projections yet for May, but it is a little soft for May. So again, we still have a ways to go. One of the things that I heard when I first came here was, we're not doing enough in the community. And one of the things that we have worked really hard on is to be out in the community, whether it's volunteering at food banks that you see up above. You've got Art doing some things. Mike and his sales team do a lot of stuff to fundraise when it comes to sales. But we have, we're putting the finishing touches on a community report. First time we've ever done this. This is a community report that will be published in the next 30 days. Our good man, Ben McDonald, is heading that up, and it's really going to focus on donations and funding and volunteering and all the really good things that we do as an organization and as a staff as a commitment to this community. And so that is coming out. It will be distributed to the board and certainly to key stakeholders in this community for the impact that we are having. here in Northern Nevada. Quick sales update, as you saw from the CEO report, the room night goal has been achieved. We're at 103% to goal through May, with the last month 226,849 room nights. So we're over our delivers. Within that, what's really a great number to see is that 50% of the business that our sales team has closed new business. So they haven't ever been here, haven't been here, I believe, what, Mike, in 3 years? Is that where we're at? So kudos to the entire sales team to do that. Welcome, Ann Silver. And overall, again, generating 50% of new clients is a great mark to have. When it comes to our marketing, that chart will show you that we have surpassed every single goal when it comes to our marketing for the year. The only thing that we were lagging on was paid, and Christina and team cranked that up in terms of what we have for the spring and going into the summer. And so we've been able to surpass all of our marketing goals, whether it's community handoffs, social media growth, impressions that we have. And again, as we finish with the last 2 weeks of this year through May, we've hit our goals. And overall, this is kind of like a recap on our annual plan and the items that we have. We've nailed every single one of our goals. There is an asterisk on a board approved budget because that hasn't closed at the end of the year. But Courtney, who's on the line here, tells us that we are trending to hit that number, but I just put an asterisk since we haven't closed budget for the end of the year to make sure that we hit that mark for board approved budget. That takes us to the annual plan. Ben will talk about that in his item up, but again, this is the cover. You'll see a draft when Ben talks about this briefly. This is year 2 of our 3-year strategic plan. So as we roll into July 1st and move forward, we're just executing year 2 of 3 and the board approved 3-year plan. So that's coming as well. There's a couple pieces that I'm going to throw in here as well that just came to me. The visitor data of origin markets. And if you look at this, certainly California helps drive a lot of the visitation that we have. San Francisco, Sacramento, that's making up roughly 39% in the last 90 days based upon destination analyst numbers of people who are visiting the destination. So certainly we remain a strong drive market. And then you can see the other factors of people who are coming here, whether it's Salt Lake, Las Vegas, LA, and a lot of that certainly is based upon our airport and the lift that helps us get to those places. And then spending by category, it's a breakdown again of the last 90 days. And food, retail, accommodations certainly carrying the heavy part of that when it comes to people spending in the area. And that goes to the point of the economic impact. When people come here overall, it's certainly heads and beds, like Mr. Murdoch likes to carry that flag, and we're not going to ever doubt that. But certainly there's a lot of other factors that help make the economic vitality of this region. And that's a breakdown of those numbers. Want to touch briefly on our friends at Destination Analysts who were hired this year. This is an overview. There's some great numbers that Christina is going to be talking about in the weeks and the months ahead. It's about economic impact and what really has been taking place. This, which is in your package, talk about people who have visited here recently or intend to travel to this destination. And there were surveys and information that's done to help provide guidance on what that looks like when it comes to visitation. These are phenomenal numbers that we need to shout, and I hope everybody on this board carries these numbers forward. The direct spending of visitors that come to this destination, $3 billion, and that's all the things that we're talking about. That's the direct spend of economic impact. The indirect and induced spend, which is a lot of the related businesses as it relates to travel, is $4.6 billion in 2022. And here's a great number that we haven't used before. There's 36,000 jobs that are supported by our efforts in tourism moving forward. So some great numbers there. When we talk about a breakdown by types, the visitors, we actually have breakdowns by hotel, motel, all, and including day trippers, which is the second largest group of visitors that come here after the hotel folks. And again, the total spending by segment as well. So our friends at Destination Analysts are doing a great job of drilling down of what type of visitors, where are they spending, and certainly Christina and team are going to go through that in the weeks and the months ahead. The origin of paid of people who are coming to Reno Tahoe, arrivals by the visitor type, 72% coming overnight, with the rest in day trips. And then you have performance by breakout, again, spending by different segments and what that looks like to get us to that $3 billion. And then lastly, Reno Tahoe spending by category, lots of different information in there as well. In 2022 calendar year, we reached a record number of visitors that we've ever had here. 4.6 million visitors that have come. Again, we saw the lows in 2020 when I first arrived, but a great job by our stakeholders, our staff, and everybody in the community to help drive that visitor economy. And certainly starting to approach that 5 million when it comes to overall visitation. With that, I'm going to wrap up my presentation. I just want to say thank you to the board, to the staff for the opportunity to represent and be a part of this for nearly 3 years. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair and see if there's any questions.
Okay. Do I have any questions from board members? Questions, comments, and Plunkett?
Thank you. Mr. Harris, on the origination data that you have, where did that come through destination analysis or was that?
It was through destination analysts for the last 90 days. So they do a trend report. They do a trend report on what's happening in the last 90 days, and that will be updated continuously by them. Christina, anything you want
With
to?
some of the origination data, those first ones were from Zartico
Yeah.
also.
Okay.
Yes.
So it isn't technically just a survey or anything?
No, it's from Zartico using tracking of phones.
Credit
All
card? or
the
no?
credit cards is what they use to track spending. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Frosta.
Just one question. Do we have the data on the total room tax collection on what comes from gaming and what the non-gaming hotels is a percentage of how much our overall budget is?
It's a great question. I'm going to defer to Courtney. Courtney, if you can weigh in on that. Courtney, can you hear us?
I can barely hear. Jessica, could you restate the question?
Yeah, I was just asking a percentage of the hotels and the non-gaming hotels and the gaming hotels and a percentage of our room tax collection. Do you know that figure? That breakdown?
Yeah, we can get that breakdown to you of the percentage of gaming versus non-gaming. I don't have that with me right now since I am traveling, but I will definitely get that to you.
Mike Hester.
Yeah, good morning, Mike Thurgood. Courtney, obviously, I had a conversation with you and Robert Douglas, and I pulled that information for the purpose of the indoor track item today. And so what Robert Douglas was able to provide me was data through April in different categories. And so for the hotel segment, which is all gaming and non-gaming, that excludes vacation rentals, that excludes RVs and motels. Non-gaming represented 30.6% of the room tax. And then it's broken down by obviously geographical areas besides that. That is just hotel, casino to non.
It's 30% for the high places of the world and the Marriotts.
Correct. So that
That's
includes,
30% for all the ancillary hotels that have non-game.
that's correct.
That's a big number.
Just a follow-up question on that. Is that trending, Mr. Largetta?
The prior year fiscal year was 30.8 for the entire fiscal year of non-gaming. So they're representing almost a third of the room tax. And the purpose why I pulled that number was obviously for the conversation of compression and as it relates to the track and events.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other board members have questions? Commissioners? Yeah, she could,
Thank you for your service. I really appreciate it. One of the things that I think happens with great leadership and great team, and you did that. I really appreciate it. And it says a lot about you, and I think they have a lot of respect for you.
and I would like to echo that and thank you for coming in the middle of COVID and where we've been, the ride that we've had. You and I arrived the same day. I both joked we were both rookies, using your baseball analogy, and yeah, coming in COVID and really kind of not knowing, none of us knew. Impact of COVID, how long it would last, how we get people to travel again, and really, at the end of the day, being that this destination has so much outdoor attractions and really what people with pent-up travel demand work to our advantage. But I really want to thank you for your leadership, for your direction of our team, this board and moving us in a great direction. And I think you have left the RSCVA better than when you arrived. And I appreciate that. So thank you. And while I'm doing acknowledgements, now that Anne is here, I just wanted to acknowledge our board members that are leaving. And thank you, Jessica. Your knowledge, your longtime community involvement and expertise that you bring from city council to, business to just, your roots are here, but just the experience and knowledge that you brought to this board from the airport, but really more what you brought, much appreciated. You dial into things, dial into more detail on things that I might not have caught. And I appreciate your contribution to this board has been great. And appreciate so much what you do. Shannon, thank you. You come in with your business expertise and really and I think what I like, because I'm like one of those fiscal watchdogs, is what I do, my other job on the council. And really, I look at you as really the gatekeeper of a lot of the fiscal policy and where we're spending money and why. And you come in with a tremendous amount of knowledge and really priority on that. And I appreciate that in your time on this board. And then Anne, you come in with so many skills, obviously our connection to the business community is so important with small businesses being the driver of the economy. And then people forget that. And I know you remind them all the time. And I try to, that really in the community, in the state, in the country, small business is what drives our economy. And we can't forget that. So really, and that connects us to the community. So I think your contributions from the chamber side, from all of the different hats you've worn in the past, from legal to HR to management, you've added a lot to this board, and I appreciate your time. So thank you all very much. And I'm going to move on. So where I want to go next, we finished D1. As we move into board matters, I would like to move two of our later items, F1 and F2, on our board appointments up. Commissioner Hill is back in Washington, D.C., and she is going to be traveling to the airport to get a flight home. And I was concerned that if we had it at the very end, I didn't want you, on the road or in an airport terminal trying to hear our meeting. And so
thank you, Madam Chair.
The convenience of her not missing a flight because she's waiting to vote on these items. I've moved up those two items. So we are going to go with F1, the RSCVA board appointment of the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority Board of Directors seat, which is the seat that will be effective July 1st, currently held by Ms. Ferraza. And we've received two names from the Airport Authority. We've received Richard J. and Adam Kramer. And just a reminder to the rest of the board that on new appointments to the board, it is only the three electeds who vote on these. So moving forward, I would like to, my motion would be to accept Adam Kramer as our representative. I think Adam brings an entrepreneurial business experience, just comes in with so many different skills in what he's done with Switch, with the company he just founded. I think that's a unique skill that would be beneficial to this board. Mayor Sheedy.
Yeah, thank you so much. Adam is amazing. I have the opportunity to work with him often. So I think that you're right. He is tremendous. I worry a little bit about his time. So I would like to appoint Richard J.
Okay, so we got two.
So there you go, Alexis.
So here's our. Do we,
So
okay, hang on, we're gonna get the attorney involved here.
I'm just gonna wait. So I think you hit all the points. The one thing I'd like to just put on the record is that Ms. Ferraza still has a year left on her term and is ineligible to continue because she's terming off the airport board. So this appointment is for 1 year to fill the balance of Ms. Ferraza's unexpired term. And correct, so this item is only voted on by the elected officials, but it's open for discussion by the entire.
Okay, so hearing that, I'll give you a minute, Alexis. We'll see if anybody has anything else that they would like to say. Mr. Murdoch.
You know, just the history of the board is, I remember we've always had somebody from the banking community in, and I think Richard's in the banking community. And I just thought, you know, we haven't had a banker on the board in a long time, and bankers, I remember they always looked at your numbers, you always felt good about them looking at the books, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I think that's one of the reasons that Richard J really fits the model here, because we haven't had a banker in a long time, so just, that's.
Other
Put my 2
discussion?
cents in.
Other discussion, Ms. Fraza.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I absolutely love both Chairman Kramer and Trustee Jay. I think either one of them would be great. I will say, Chairman Kramer is also chair of the Renown Board as well, so he's got a lot on his plate. So, and I just know serving on this board that this is a big time commitment, and so, but I am, you can't go wrong. They're both wonderful people, and you know, I see Mr. J is here, and good luck.
Thank you.
Any other board discussion? No? Okay. Alexis, excuse me, Commissioner.
Madam Chair, I did see that Richard J was in the audience. Is there any way we can open it up just for a quick public comment from him if he's interested in doing that? Or anyone else who is, I don't know if Mr. Kramer is there as well. Do we ever do that or no?
I just got an okay from the attorney, so as long as Ben says it's okay, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. J.
Good morning and thank you. My name is Richard J. I have been in this community since 1967. I have attended schools here, University of Nevada in 1984, grad school up there, but I've been committed to this community since 1984 upon graduation. I believe in my community. I believe in the airport. We've got a lot of great things going on at the airport. We've got a great board at the airport. We've got a great board right here. And I think the two boards working together can take this community to the next level. And one of the things I see that we have such an opportunity in front of us is youth sports tournaments. We're only scratching the surface right now. We do a great job volleyball. We do a great job with basketball. We do a couple other great things, but we're missing the flat field component. And that's something I pushed for a very long time. When Jessica was on the city council, she knows I was in front of council all the time. We need more fields. We need this, we need that. It helps our community. We've got Las Vegas right now that has 12 complexes, flat fields. Some of their tournaments bring in over a 2-week period, 1,200 teams coming in. Why can't we do the same? We've got a better venue up here. We've got Tahoe, we've got Virginia City, we've got Donner, we've got Reno, we've got Sparks, we've got the whole surrounding community here. That's something that's untapped. I have time, you know, like Mr. Murdoch was saying, I'm a banker. I'm not so much on the banking side. I'm a financial advisor, a senior vice president with Wells Fargo. But I would love the opportunity to work with everybody here and taking this community to the next level. And with the leadership from Chair Bybee there, I think we can really move forward with this and continue the progress that we have. We got great momentum. We got great momentum out at the airport. Let's, you know, continue this collaboration and make our community even better and promote tourism and conventions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Bybee, and I'm really divided because my board appointed Mr. Kramer to serve on the airport board, but having Mr. J actually come in, show his interest, his passion, I do think half of life is showing up, and I'd like to second the mayor's nomination.
So really, that's the vote, right?
So maybe we just do a roll call vote for the clerk.
Okay. So Madam Clerk, can you do roll call vote on the F1?
Chair Bybee,
Adam Kramer,
Mayor Sheedy,
Richard J.
Commissioner Hill.
Mr. J. Madam Chair, can we get a unanimous vote on this just because he's going on the board?
Since it's already decided.
So wait, you need to
yes.
finish. Before we do that, I think, Ben, am I right? You need to finish and take the motion.
Well, I think the roll call is fine. I can stand in place of the motion.
Okay.
Okay, but then we have to redo the roll call if I'm gonna change my vote.
I think you change your vote without.
Without
Yeah,
it going through there.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, Commissioner Hill, yeah, absolutely, and I've known Richard forever, and I think he's awesome. I think I just, you know, with Adam, he's coming off chair of the airport. I know he's a busy guy, it's a 1 year, and I have, you know, reasons that I know that he would be spectacular in a different way than Mr. J would. And, but absolutely to make it a unanimous vote, I'd be willing to change my vote, and I know we could work well together, we've known each other for a long time, so.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Hill, and we'll go ahead with a 3-0 vote and welcome Mr. J. Okay, we're moving on to item F2, RSCVA Board Appointment of the Nevada Resort Association Board of Directors seat. This is for the full 2-year appointment, effective July 1st. And the NRA has submitted the following names for consideration: Matt Denning and John East. Somebody else want to go first?
Sure.
Okay,
I think they're both wonderful, so we win with both candidates, just like we did with Richard and Adam Kramer. John East.
okay. I would agree with the mayor, with John East. This is all representing, this is NRA, but it is representative of J Resort. Mr. East is with J Resort, Matt Denning is the Goldust West, which is J Resort, so it's their rotation, just FYI.
When was the last time then that they have been on the board? I don't ever remember.
Never.
The first time.
Never.
Wow.
Has Stan's,
Wow.
Stan's never was?
Unless Ference was on it one time when he ran a Sands.
I never
I don't
remember.
remember.
So Jay,
This is new.
going back to the Victorian.
Yeah.
I do think Ference's role was with the Reno Hilton back in the
Yeah.
day, but, with the J being a new NRA member, fairly new, I think it's a great appointment, and I get to deal with Mr. East quarterly on the board meetings, but I think that's a great pick, and I think it's a great representation for the investment that's going on downtown. I think it's great to build part of this discussion.
Okay, was there any, I'll come back to you, Commissioner Hill, I guess I'm gonna see, was there any other discussion from the board? Okay, Commissioner Hill.
I go with Mr. East as well. Thank you very much.
You need to do roll call?
It's easier to do a motion.
Okay, do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll motion for Mr. East.
Okay, I'll second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3 in favor, passes unanimously. Thank you. So we have our 2 new board members who will be coming on to our July meeting. Welcome. Okay, we're on E1, review, discussion, and possible approval of the acquisition of a portable indoor track equipment and portable bleachers. We're discussing all 3, yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. If Commissioner Hill has to go, do we want to have the discussion of the interim position? First, totally up to you. I was just thinking that.
If she can let us know her timeline of the track is, we wanted to keep up front. Okay, but we could move after the track discussion, we could move to the interim. How are you timeline?
That's
Commissioner?
great. I just need to wrap up in an hour and a half and go to the airport. So
Yeah. Okay, just FYI, that doesn't mean that we take an hour and a half for the track. Just kind of warning everybody here. And then we're going to, we'll open the presentation. And then what I'd like to do today, because it brought to my attention, since we're with this new system and we don't have mics with lights on it, I don't know, and I'm looking left and right to see who wants to speak. So I really think a better way to, what I would like to do is that on items, when I open it for discussion, I'm going to call on board members. If you have nothing, then you don't. And if you do have something, if you can 2 to 3 minutes so that we can make sure everybody gets a chance. And then I'm not trying to figure out, and people aren't talking over each other. I'm not missing somebody because I didn't see that you had your hand up. So I think I'm going to try that on the track discussion. But for right now, I'm going to open this up and who do we have presenting? Do we have Mr. Largett?
You know what, if it's okay.
I'm sorry. Hello. I'm on the finance committee and I do want Mr. Esquaga to report on what the finance committee met, and I'll let you tee off
Okay, yeah.
the other speakers on this.
In my portion of it, it's only an hour and 15 minutes. So let's see, make it to the airport. No, I'm gonna be brief, but I do want to tap into, we'll have Mr. Largetta more from a track specific side, Ms. Yeager from the finance and how we plan on paying for this side. Is all of you remember, we beat this up pretty well at the last board meeting, but on the other end, it's a $5 million request. It's a pretty large investment for this organization. We kicked it to the finance and facility committee. We met last Tuesday on the 6th, and we spent it's probably around 2 hours really being able to get in the weeds and kind of go down the rabbit hole of the specifics. And I'm going to just give you kind of an overview. We did unanimously support it. And I'll give you the reasons behind, just for everyone's information. It's member Chapman and Murdoch and myself and Chairwoman Biden that sit on the Finance and Facility Committee. We got into the weeds with the track on everything from the identified room nights, kind of the projections over the 5 years. Back to the point of, I think probably one of the most positives of this proposal is the fact that it's a November to February piece of business, November to March. And that's really what we've charged staff with over the years, is how do we find more off-season business to where we're not just a 1 or 2 season destination. It does skew younger, and there's trade-offs with that, but that's where we got into the discussion of the flag properties of the Marriott Courtyards, the Element, things like that. They are large contributors for groups like this, as well as the major gaming properties as well. Let me just kind of go over this. We've spent quite a bit of time into the actual logistics of the track of, okay, when this comes in from, is it Moda? Now I just drew blank. Mondo, I'm sorry. From Italy, Trent's team, what it's going to take on setup, learning the setup, running the event, breakdown, store, transportation, storage, putting it away, because we've all done these things at home, right? You put it away until the next one, and then it's like, how do we get this thing back up? And some of this is gonna be fluid. I don't want to paint the picture like we're not gonna have any issues, but I feel like we have a very capable team. But we're gonna be producing an event every winter, November to March, and I think we're gonna learn as we go. Let me just see here. We did really spend a lot of time with Ms. Yeager and Mr. Largetta and Trent as well on senior management, identifying how we're gonna put together the financing side. There's a 1.8 million that'll affect fiscal 23-24, and the remaining 3.1 24-25. And I'm gonna let Ms. Yeager speak more to that when we get into it. We do tap into the opportunity fund, which is something that we as a board have put money aside specifically, I think, for reasons like this, to actually have something tangible, and it's also going to regenerate room tax collections. Let me see if there's any other. We talked about the community value. I do think there's a great piece here that also gives back to the local community. The running community, which is very vibrant. Obviously, we had standing room only at the last meeting. I think the partnership with the university, while it isn't fiscal, tangible cash contribution, the storage piece is a reality. That's a big piece. And I think the more that we can, it feels like that bridge is being built with the university. I think that's all a positive. But then again, I do go back to that shoulder season piece of business. It was really probably one of the larger driving reasons, but I'll pass it to any board members that want to speak to it, and then obviously staff is here as well.
So I have one question for the committee. The storage piece, did we get, I know the original term was 5 years, and we said 10. Did they modify the?
They did. So, yes, they did. So, for the record, Mike Larragetta. So we went through several items during the finance committee meeting that the committee asked us to go back and solidify and get confirmation on. One was the agreement with the University of Nevada from a 5 to a 10-year commitment. We did get that in writing via email. We did not include it in the packet. For this particular meeting, happy to send that to all board members as requested, but we did get a written commitment from the university for a 10-year commitment for storage and transportation.
Great, and thank you to the finance committee. I'm totally comfortable with this. I think this is amazing. It's 3 check marks. New events, off-season, and working with our community partners. My big issue was the storage, and it sounds like we worked it out in a partnership with the university, but this is exactly what we need. And that 30%, that's huge for the non-gaming hotel, and they're a big piece of our room tax revenue here. So good job to staff and everyone involved, Mr. Larragetta, and thanks to the finance committee for vetting this. It makes it a smoother transition at these board meetings.
Mr. Chairman, do you have anything?
Yeah, just real quick, and as chair of the special events committee, and we did a lot of work on developing the criteria for that special event opportunity fund. And we had this conversation at the finance committee. I believe it fits very well in that, because this really is a special event. It's infrastructure needed for the special event, but without that infrastructure, we wouldn't get that special event. So I think the idea would be to potentially dedicate a 2-year funding cycle of that. I know that that's another conversation for 24-25. And I also just wanted to mention that we did have quite a bit of conversation for the amount due in 24-25, and how we're looking for staff to kind of bring forward a more in-depth detailed funding plan on that, but one that kind of hits across all departments, so that we're spreading the pain, so to speak, on that, to make sure that, we're not going against either capital, CapEx too hard, or whatever it may be. And then I will just notice that we did put $500,000 back into paving and CapEx, at least as a recommendation, to make sure that we're taking care of the livestock event center needs that are out there. So thanks.
Mayor Sheedy, anything to add?
Thank you so much. Couple things. The piece, I'm glad you brought it up, Stephen, about the storage, but I have the utmost confidence in Trent that it will be like perfect. Do you have any concerns? Have you thought about that? I mean, I know that you're the best of the best, but that was a little.
No, right now, UNR is committing to have a climate controlled facility for it and do the transportation, and we're fine with that as long as we stay on top of it.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then the other thing, was there any discussion about branding opportunities? I really think that is so important. That's one area where we kind of miss out on some of those partnerships with them. So I'd really like to have that.
With the university itself,
Yeah. Mhm.
that's a good point.
If we could really make sure that there's a discussion and get.
We did spend a ton of time, obviously that was part of, as well as we talked about kind of a larger sponsorship opportunity, but I think the university you're spot on. That's more.
So maybe Christina, I see her writing her notes.
I know.
Because that's your favorite.
Yes.
And really, I think this is a major commitment from, this organization. And we really need to show our support for the university and vice versa. I think that branding is so critical.
And we should be used for other, we should be used for other things too, right? So that's good.
Let's go ahead and speak to that, Mr. Larragetta, for the record. We had this conversation as well during the finance committee. there's opportunity, obviously, to use the bleachers for other business, whether that's a sporting event, whether that's a boxing event, whether that we wanted to do a convention center. That being said, those revenues that could be generated from those bleachers are almost like a bonus. We're not factoring that into offsetting the expense, but to answer your question, yes, there is opportunities to use those bleachers for other events and rent them and generate
I
other
was just gonna
business.
say rental too.
Yeah,
right? Some people-
that, rental, absolutely.
Any other questions, Ms. Green? Ms. Silver?
Well, first of all, I attended the finance committee meeting as a member of the public and compliment the members for really taking a deep dive and asking all the right questions. And to Ms. Faraz's point, that was critical, I think, to go over those numbers in detail. And I just want to say, as given the fact Dutch Brothers is a great member of the chamber, they are very grateful. You know, they are booming in terms of business from the convention center, and they are very pleased, and as such, they provide the chamber free coffee for events. So it's all about partnership in a big way.
Mr. Murdoch?
Real quick, two things that were really stuck out was the board members told the finance committee to ask questions was the 10-year agreement. And I think working with Sandoval and his team, President Sandoval and his team is critical for university moving into town even more and being a part of our community and helping draw. You know, they've got Kansas coming in for football. I mean, there's some real, I'm just saying, these are the things that bring heads and beds and hopefully we're on the right track. Secondly is, I think that 30% is pretty glaring that the Marriotts and the Hiltons of the world are contributing 30% to the room tax out here. And I think what that tells me is, you know, even when volleyball comes to town, the row may not be able to take the rooms, but the Hyatts, the Marriotts of the world may take them. And we still get our 13.5%, which I think is critical. That there used to be a motel person in the old days on the RSCVA board. So basically we're giving that 30% a little bit of a voice because the track athletes will tend to stay everywhere. And I think it's a good thing for our community to support the, as Mike calls them, the, what do you call those properties?
Select service.
Select service properties.
Select service.
Anyway, and then lastly, I was in the, out of Tamarack the other night and a guy came up to me and he's with the NIAA and he goes, which is the high school. He walked up to me and says, hey, I know you guys are considering that board. He goes, you know, that will change a lot of things because you're not only going to go college and pro and, you know, worldwide, you're going to go, the high school levels of the world are going to come in and use that. And it's just good for the community. You know, we're spending that 5 million above and beyond just attracting room nights there. But you're going to have high schools, even high schools that come in will come from Vegas to spend the night. And so there is a room tax component to everything that track does. That's all I want to, that's my 2 cents. And I will give Stephen a lot of credit because Ann had to sit through this. We dug as deep as we could. And what I thought was very interesting was Courtney did a great job. We went down every line item and said, well, if we were to buy this track, all the departments that have money and revenue, how could we make this not so, you know, hard on CapEx and things like that? How do we spread it so that everybody owns it? Like Christina has to own it because she'll cut a little of her advertising to go there. So we're really cutting, but we're also adding. So the point is, this was really a deep dive, Stephen. I want to tell you that we did with Courtney and all the departments contributing to this track. So that's why I'm comfortable with the 5 million, quite honestly.
You know,
And I would like to add real quick, and then I'll bring it back to the chair, and then I'm sorry, I will go to Commissioner Hill in just a second. If you have any comments, sitting on the finance committee, it really was, I felt really good because we did really dive into the questions and we kind of jumped all over the place with what things, you know, the university will be, has already committed to sponsoring 6 meets, track meets, and that for our university partnership, but for room nights. And as Charles reminded us earlier, the economic impact of every event, whether it's an NIA track meet that they come in, maybe they're not overnight, maybe they are, but the money they spend while they're here in town, for all the bigger meets that come in, that economic impact of, and for Mr. Largetta in that, looking at what the, doing that fiscal analysis was really helpful for me, because I need to have numbers like that are really showing us, what is the potential from the first year we start out to moving forward. And I think it has incredible potential. I love us looking at the opportunity fund, because that's what we were setting it up for, was for finding a new special event. And it's not just a special event, it's a whole series of meets every single year, not just one. And I kind of feel like that, we're getting a bigger bang for our buck for that $500,000, because it's not just going to be one event that's one weekend, it's that whole period of the track season throughout the time we have it. So that just raised the bar for me as well. So totally supportive. I feel we've done our due diligence. I feel comfortable with, and it's a big ask. I mean, $5 million is not, it is not a small amount for us to consider, but I think the ROI on it, we saw those numbers, and I think that's worth that investment. Mr. Twaga, do you want, maybe go to Commissioner Hill first? Commissioner Hill, do you have anything to add?
Oh, I just wanted to thank the Finance Committee and the staff for bringing this forward and partnering. And I'm hoping that this will be one of many future investments for the RSCVA to make the destination a more desirable place to visit. And I also am very excited about cultivating future visitors, kids who are coming with their parents and remembered how much fun that they had on the river when they were visiting for their track meet or their siblings track meet. So I think there's real potential with this project, and thank you.
Thank you.
And actually, I do want to recognize also Miss Fine, who's from the sports world, and we worked together years ago on prior lives, but no, it was a great team effort on, I think, bringing this idea forward and fleshing it out. We want to have Ms. Yeager just give a real high level. I think we're in agreement of the desire to move forward on the track. Do you want to just hear kind of the high level, how we're going to pay for it real quick?
Courtney, are you still there with us?
She was having trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, if you can just give us the key high level points here, not to go into full detail, but just so that the group understands what things we are looking at for that other big amount that's coming up for the next fiscal year.
Great. Yeah, I'll give the board just a high level summary of our plan to pay for the indoor track payments. Like Mr. Esquaga mentioned, we presented several different options to the Finance Committee regarding funding for the indoor track. Unanimously, the Finance Committee decided that the first indoor track payment, which is $1.8 million and will be due during July 2023, we're going to pay that using a mix of funding. So first, we're going to use the $500,000 allocation in the Special Event Opportunity Fund, and the remaining funding is going to be reclassified from the original capital budget. So in the original capital budget, we had a paving project and some other smaller projects. We are delaying those until future fiscal years, and we're going to use those funds to pay for the indoor track projects, so for payment 1. For payment 2, that payment will be due in fiscal year 25. Like Mr. Chapman mentioned, we are using a variety of different funding for that. So first, we're going to monitor room tax revenues in fiscal year 24. If we do see room tax revenues coming in excess of our original budget, we'll likely allocate a portion of those room tax revenues to essentially save towards that fiscal year 25 payment. We're also planning to use the fiscal year 25 Special Event Opportunity Fund. That again is up to $500,000. We're also allocating a portion of the fiscal year 25 capital budget. We can allocate, for current projections, we could allocate up to $2 million from that budget without significant impacts to our overall long-term capital plan. And then lastly, we're evaluating the fiscal year 25 operating budget. Like Mr. Chapman mentioned, we do want essentially other departments to pitch in towards the funding of this payment. So we've looked at just very preliminary projections and identified areas in both marketing and sales that could have slight reductions in discretionary spending that could be used towards that payment as well. So we do have a variety of avenues that we're looking towards for the fiscal year 25 payment. And again, the fiscal year 25 budget will not be effective until approved by the Board of Directors next May. This is just essentially our recommendations and a path forward so that the board can feel comfortable in how we're planning to fund that payment.
Thank you, Courtney. Appreciate it. Do I have any questions for Courtney? Seeing none, do you want to go to Mr. Lerner for the next?
Mine
Do you have anything to add?
Mike Larrigan for the record, just thank you to the finance committee for really challenging us to deep dive into getting the answers to your questions. And thank you for the support. I would be echoing everybody's comments. I think this is a tremendous opportunity. Mr. Murdoch's point about select service properties. Obviously, this board is represented by the larger gaming hotels. And yet when the select services, they're a third of the inventory in our county. They're a third of the room tax. And even though a lot of this business initially most likely consume on a Thursday, Sunday pattern, they may stay in those select service properties. If we do not get the contracted blocks within larger hotels, that'll create compression across the board, which obviously provides the larger hotels the opportunity to yield their rates and have a more desirable customer in their hotels during those time periods. So, thank you.
Do you have anything to go? Okay. Stephen, you good?
I'm okay. Appreciate everybody's comment.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
This is what we tasked Mr. Larrigan and his team. This is showing forward thinking, and Charles for letting them do this. Appreciate you. What it means though, finally RSCVA went out and did a project, and it's thank you. That's what I can say. This is the kind of things, Vegas, they even said we're having a mini bike race over here. Vegas would have bought it. So I'm just saying, we're following a new way of thinking. It's not just all about the casinos, or it's not all about the other thing. It's about the whole community and the motel or the select service properties. They're not really, they're nice. They're pretty nice. So, and if you really want to deep dive, look at the ADRs they have $300 ADRs too. Okay. So just for the record, this is what you guys, our job as an RSCVA is. We've got the dough. We get it. Thank you.
Mr. Chapman?
If I may,
I'm ready for a motion or a comment.
I'm gonna move a motion to award the contract for the Reno Sparks Convention Business Authority RFP 2023-OPO2. Purchase of the portable indoor track to Truckee Meadows Construction Inc. under the terms presented, and to award the proposal for the portable bleachers to Flooring Solutions of NBE under the terms presented, and to award the proposal for the indoor track equipment to USC Spirit under the terms presented.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Ms. Hooker?
Just one quick
Mr.
correction,
Kennedy?
just so we're correct, so it's UCS Spirit,
Did I say that one?
USC.
Yes. So UCS.
I will amend it.
So the second.
for- Yes.
We got the correction and we got the second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
You own it now.
Yay. Okay, yeah, start making the calls to book our meets. Yes.
Again, Mike Larrigan, I was speaking to Mr. Elias this morning, and I thanked him for being here. And I said, was just checking, how are you? And he says, well, I'm recruiting, but I'm waiting on recruiting, making phone calls until after this meeting. Make impact as recruits. Thank you.
And he's going already. Thank you.
Shoes on.
Thank you. Okay, closing item E1. Per request, so that we can make sure we have Commissioner Hill still with us and not on our way to the airport. We're gonna move ahead to E7, reviews.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you not want to do the
Oh, do we want to keep the,
Sky Show or no? With Alexis on the call?
you still have, you're good on
I have
time.
another hour.
Okay, so you know what, let's keep the next item because it does come to the finance committee, so, Stephen can report what we found and then bring it to the board, so we'll move E7 after, E2.
I'll be brief.
Thank you.
I'm gonna hit my stride now. And there's less zeros on the number, so I feel a little, right. So for E2, was the request, the Finance and Facility Committee recommended supporting the request of sponsorship for the Incline Village Crystal Bay July 4th Sky Show. It was a $20,000 amount. This was a little bit of a discretionary decision but we felt that while it did not qualify under the special event criteria, that the process that they went through, that it very much fell under the purpose of the RSCVA's intent. It's a major contributing member of the RSCVA. They create a considerable amount of room tax, obviously, up in Incline Village in Crystal Bay. It was a reasonable amount, and we felt that it was very good also for not just the tourism community, but the local community in general, and really positive message. I know Mr. McDonald sits on a sustainability organization for tourism, which I think is going to be
those are green fireworks, right?
not even fireworks. Drones.
They just had that in Columbus, amazing.
So I think again, there's a messaging, I think there's a messaging component of this that's falls right in our wheelhouse. So that's the clip note versions of that meeting.
Okay, and I'm gonna start over here to see if I have any board comments or discussion, Mr. Murdock.
Yeah, I think I like it. I think it's great. I think every jurisdiction should get the 20,000, whether it's Sparks, and them for their fireworks show. So that just makes it easy. It's contributing to everybody.
Well, we should all do drones.
Yes, I think
I just think it's great, it's drones. Yeah.
I think it's the way to go.
It's amazing.
So, okay.
20,000 is not an amazing amount of money to put on a great show and entertain both the visitors and people who live there.
Okay, Ms. Kale?
Just a question, how many minutes?
It's about 14 to 16, the drone show itself, but the event it's in entirety is about a 3.5 hour. We have a laser show, we have a DJ, we've got MCs, we've got kids games, we got food trucks, beer and wine booths. So it goes from 7 to about 11.
Okay, I'd love to connect with you on that, get more details for down here.
Awesome. So you were.
I'm all tapped out.
You're. Here she goes.
I would just like to make a motion if there are no other comments. I think it's awesome.
Okay, let me hold your motion for a second, make sure. Anything more, Mr. Chapman, Ms. Frassa?
Just to echo Mr. Murdock, if the other jurisdictions need funding for, because I do think fireworks are tourism events. And I think the drone show, I think that's gonna be the new way of doing these, especially with fire prone areas here. So if Reno and Stars wanna come in, I'm in favor of that as well. So I think this is probably the new age of how we should be doing things, and thanks to Tahoe for setting the example, because these wildfires are crazy. So I just wanna, even the county, and I know Incline's in the county, but I think every jurisdiction should get this funding from the RSCVA, but I'm totally supportive.
So, Commissioner Hill?
I'm happy to second the mayor's motion as soon as she makes it.
And I just have one more comment, is I would, I think that it also, obviously with wildfires, this is the way of the future where we need to go. But I think it's a messaging, and I'm looking right at Christina, a real messaging of the RCVA's commitment to sustainability and to stewardship of the lake, with the lake being perhaps our biggest draw of why people come to this region is Tahoe, and what we can do to protect that, to make sure, the longevity of our ability to have tourists there in a safe environment really makes a lot of sense. So it's $20,000, but I think that buys us more messaging on really our commitment to make sure we're supporting something that is safer, that is not just for the community, but for visitors alike. And so it's a separate message that I think is super important of our protection of Tahoe and our commitment to do that as an organization.
I'm sure not to
Yes.
prolong if I can, I
Yes.
want to touch on a couple of things. I think we felt and know, and I appreciate Ben and Christina are on that Destination Stewardship Council, that we're getting ready to announce that in the press release or press conference next week. But I think the ability to do that last year, after doing the fireworks in 2019, because we produced the fireworks in 2019, did a hiatus in 20 and 21, but really looking to be kind of at the tip of the spear. And, by doing that last year, we have both the other two fireworks on the North Shore of Tahoe have now gone to drone shows as well. Our friends on the South Shore are still doing fireworks, and our friends in Truckee are still doing fireworks. We'll we'll see how those go in the future, but it's really, you know, we have to start talking the talk and walking the walk and making difficult decisions based around this 2-year project of this stewardship plan that will be announced next week. So, you know, there are decisions that we're going to be making around the region. I want to give a highlight to Commissioner Hill as well for her participation in the counties. This is supported by North Tahoe Fire Protection Agency. The Washoe County Sheriffs are very into it. It's a very inclusive community event. When the fireworks happened at the beaches, they were much less of a community event, and they were much more raucous because people were there all day drinking. And this is a different event, so I appreciate the support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, one more comment, and then we're gonna go to the mayor's motion.
What I want to tell you, I went to the ballpark the other night and the Northern Nevada Cancer, whatever, they were raising money for their event and they did a small fireworks show. You should see the people. If any kind of that can be done with drones, and it was such a neat thing. And it was downtown Reno at the Aces ballpark and they did live fireworks, but just the mini show and the people that love it. And if drones are as good as that or better, I think it's gotta be, it'll be so cool because everybody will go to it, including the Aces, which do a lot of fireworks. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, you're welcome. And I would echo that, and if you think about the last couple of Olympics, I could not believe those were drones. When you look at, I mean, that's big ticket and that's huge shows, but the possibilities of technology, the technology of what you can do with drones on all scales.
And you can mess it,
Very cool.
great for branding. I would just.
Okay, I think we're ready for your motion.
All right. I make that motion. I can support.
Second.
We're good? Okay, so a motion and a second to accept the $20,000 event sponsorship for Incline Village Crystal Bay July 4th drone show has been made. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you. Okay, now we'll move to item E7. Review discussion possible action to authorize the chair of the board of directors to execute documents and provide direction regarding the interim president and CEO. Ben, do you want to guide us here?
Sure, I can open this up. So two things we're considering here today. So as we're all aware, Charles Harris, last day is the end of this month. Come July 1, we'll need somebody in place to be able to execute checks, sign the checks up to Mr. Harris's signature authority. So what we're proposing today is to name the chair and give her the authority to execute documents and checks as necessary. The second part is more long-term looking forward, how the board wants to approach the vacancy. So does the board want to name an interim president CEO? If the answer there is yes, then what does that look like? And we can, to be able to have a discussion about potential interims, we have to agendize it. We have to give the people the correct notice. So we can't discuss the merits of any actual candidates today. But we can take names if you want to put names out there to come back at the July meeting. If you'd rather not put names out publicly at this point, you can always reach out to myself or the chair offline in advance of next month's meeting with anybody you want to consider. So with that, if there are any sort of questions on the agenda item, I'm happy to answer them, or I can turn it back to the chair.
Okay, so just clarify, trying to think here, just clarify. You don't want any discussion on merits of.
So what we don't want to say is
Or, so explain to me like what that looks like.
sure. So per the open meeting law, if we're going to discuss someone's character, professional competence, whether they be the right person for the job, we have to provide them notice in advance of the public meeting. So we cannot have those discussions today. You could say, I'd like to nominate Mr. X, and then we leave it at that. And then before July's meeting, I reach out to Mr. X and say, your name's been thrown out there. Are you interested? And if you are, then I can notice them up, come back in July, and we can have the substantive discussion of whether that person should be appointed. So we're not agendized today to appoint an interim or to discuss the merits of different candidates.
Okay.
We're
Which I
agendized.
think is weird, because you would be like, hey, I think that maybe this person would be, the chair. It'd be, you know, I don't know.
You're saying that for sake of public.
Yeah.
Just
I
an
guess.
open
Right, we want to be able to
Right.
give them. a
So
heads up.
let me ask you this, I mean, also, one of the things I would think would be very beneficial is, once we do this, could we bring it back to a special meeting so that we could get going? Instead of we wait another month?
That's up to the board and the chair. So,
I'm trying to think, like, Charles, you're leaving end of month?
June
And
3rd.
so how long are we without signature?
Well, so if we approve the chair to sign the checks, then starting July 1, she'll have that authority.
Okay,
So we're not making her the interim president CEO, but we're giving her the authority to execute the documents that need to be executed in the absence of a sitting president CEO. And then in July, if the board wants to put someone in that position as the interim president CEO, sort of everything that goes along with that, we can do that at the next meeting. So the idea is there's no gap in signature authority. But we're not actually naming somebody until next month, if that's what the board decides to do.
Mr. Chapman.
Would it be reasonable to separate these two right now and deal with the signature? Because that's really a component that I think is pretty
Yeah.
easy.
Uh-huh.
And that way,
Sure.
I would move a motion that we provide the chair the authority to sign up to the CEO signing as of July 1st, until the interim and or permanent replacement on
and
the
I'll
CEO.
second that.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Chapman, second by Mayor Sheeby. Any discussion on that half of this?
Just for the
agenda?
clarification, it's up to 10,000.
10,000 is by staff, anything over 10,000, but less than 100,000 goes to CEO.
Okay.
The CEO has up to 100,000.
Up to 100,000 is approved by the board.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And then if I may continue, so I'd like to have
Mexico.
I'd like to have I think it's worth a conversation about what do we think the time frame is? I know we had the RFPs out there. We had our two applicants or two folks that were in the audience this last week to do the search terms or the search process. You know, what do we think that time is? And do we need to appoint an interim, or is there an opportunity to look at a shared responsibility within the staff structure and the chair? So I think that's one conversation, is do we need one? And then I think obviously if the answer is yes, then that kicks on another conversation, but I'd like to delve into that one first.
So if you'd like me to
You want to give us?
field the first part, just based on my experience with this process, and we can certainly, when you retain a search firm, we can try to prod them along and get them to speed that process. But, we're set in July to select a search firm. I'd say 6 months is probably the inside date. I think you're probably 6 to 9 is what it has historically been. And, we can do everything we can to expedite that, but I think that's a reasonable estimate.
Probably 6 months minimum.
Yes.
Okay, starting July 1st. Ms. Rosen.
So could we do a hybrid, so we have our chairwoman and then internal staff? We want to put it out there, working together, because that's a long time we went through this at the airport. And it took a while to make that happen. I want to say it was 6 to 9 months. I won't be here, but I do think you've got to have somebody who's doing the day-to-day operations of the organization, working along with our chairwoman.
My experience in the past too, whenever Bob did it, you really need someone in the building that's there every day. That's important. The good news is Charles has done a great job with our VPs. I think it should be VP level.
We got a great team.
Yeah.
She's got all these awards.
I
We heard about it earlier, so.
Yeah.
I
have a lot of confidence.
Madam Chair, to me,
Ms. Winter.
you're the signing authority and you go get somebody to do the operation, chief operating officer, whatever. Yeah, I'm just using that as an example, but I would be very comfortable with that. I think down the line, how we get there, or the meeting while we stay clean, but that would be so.
What do you want us to do?
Well,
I'm just
Stuck in a meeting law.
I know, it
So-
feels like we're all trying to like not talk because we're gonna want to break up a meeting.
Yeah.
So there've been discussions from board members, some questioning whether we need an interim. And whether you could just have the chair with signature authority and then sort of staff, you've got all VPs and you're just sort of tasking them to run the organization. So I think that's the first question is, do you want an interim president CEO that is external or somebody that's on staff that is in charge of the organization inside the building? So if that answer is no, then the chair keeps her signature authority and staff is trusted to keep the lights on and run the organization for the next 6 to 9 months. If the answer is yes, we think we need an interim CEO that shows up in the building every day that's in charge. Then, once we make that decision, at the next meeting, we'll come back to you with names and people that we can discuss, and you can have the substantive discussion of, I think this person would be better than that person because X, Y, and Z. So really, we just need some direction here. You want an interim or do you not?
So why don't you, that be the first discussion.
Okay, and then okay, so you set the table there. I'd like to reach out and get some more comments on this Silver.
Yeah, I like Jessica will not be here, but I think we've talked about the competency of the senior team. And I would think that's exactly why you grow a senior team, so that in times where there is an interim opportunity, whether it's a group of you or it's one person who takes the lead, they have the institutional knowledge, they're here every day. You're not acquainting someone new who has to get to know them. And it makes a smoother transition, I think, because they are here, they know what's going on, they're part of all these decisions and have been at every board meeting. I think it makes it a lot easier for us to focus on the search and then to let the group, whether it's one person or a collaborative of the senior team, serve as the operations day to day, doing their jobs and doing what they've always been doing. I think that makes a great deal of sense versus having a discussion about somebody else coming in to oversee people who are doing such a great job at what they do.
Yes.
Just my 2 cents as I head out the door. Mike, Courtney, Christina, Trent, Ben, Art, they know what they're doing. It's a good team that knows what they're doing. This board has approved a 3-year strategic plan. We are going to look at a draft at year 2 this year. The only thing that has to be done is just finalizing numbers, which is, today is just a draft. You come back in July and improve those numbers. These are people that know what they're doing. And keep consistency where they know what they're doing. You guys focus on the search. You have someone that can sign checks as needed. Maybe Charlene, meet with them once in a while. This team knows what they're doing. This is a veterans team, and I would encourage you to not rock the boat and have someone have to learn a whole lot. My 2 cents.
Okay, Ms. Frozen.
I'm gonna throw it out there. I'm gonna throw out bringing Mr. Largetta back on for a special meeting, senior person with his staff to, and working with all the VPs, to run the organization in the interim with our chairwoman, Ms. Spivey. So.
All right.
So is that,
A motion?
It's a motion, yeah,
well, that's,
to bring it back, to bring back.
it's adding names, it's putting names down there. We can't.
Yeah, so I don't think
We can't.
we want to take action to bring somebody back. I think if the direction is the board wants to consider an interim
Okay.
president, CEO.
Consider
Or not.
get this
Yes,
discussion.
if they do, then we will, and in July, we'll come back. And if there are additional names that people want considered between now and then, you can reach out to the chair, right?
Is it
And then the
appropriate,
discussion can be had in July.
is it appropriate to make a motion to consider an internal candidate?
Yeah,
Or
okay.
does that put us in jeopardy of discussion of the candidate?
Well, we're not really agendized for that. So we're agendized for, do you want an interim or not?
That's
what we need to go
I think that's what we answer
Okay.
right now, is do we want one or not?
The interim or not.
I agree with Charles and the staff and having a collective leadership period of time for 5 or 6 months. I don't believe we need to appoint a single person to do that. I think it's a leadership council with the chair and this board is going to get through the next 6 to 9 months. I don't see that roadmap being that difficult. I'm sure, we're only here a couple hours in a month and there's a lot of activity that happens behind the walls, but I'm sure that this team could move that forward with this board support and the chair involved. I don't think we need to appoint a particular person to come in here to lead, whether internal or external.
And if I could speak to that too, I would agree with Andy, because I think, my concern for all of these team members is that they've got, especially Christina and Mike, the heart of what we do is marketing and sales. And I want them full out focused on what they're doing now, on doing the job they're doing. And I really feel keeping each of our VPs on track, what they're doing. To Charles' point, we have the strategic plan, we've got the budget, they've been here, they know what they're doing. And I think that collective knowledge of that team, I don't want to pull one over anybody else, to take them away from the job they're doing right now. And I think the jobs you're doing right now are too important to do that. And I think, to Andy's point, as a collective, I think that they have the strength to do that. And so that you guys all know, I am going to be here not just to sign checks, but I will be here and engaged consistently as much as they need me to be meeting with them to help with whatever I can do in a leadership capacity as chair, working very closely with the senior staff to make sure, and if things come up, where do we go? And I think that's a decision I would be willing to make with the senior staff. And I really bringing someone from outside that doesn't know where we are, where we're going, is just, for me, doesn't make sense. And then really pushing the CEO search so we can move that, and go with the goal of 6 months. And maybe that's overly optimistic, but that's kind of how I tend to be anyway. But I really, I agree with what Mr. Chapman is saying, but just so you guys know, I'm on board. I'm on board for whatever this organization needs. And we'll make sure, that I'm there with that team to lead the organization.
Beth, can you help us, please?
Can I ask a question?
Are we
on that, though?
making a motion and then Andy seems to have made a motion?
I think we're still on discussion. We're still on discussion.
I just
Ms.
have an
Rosa?
issue. I'm looking at our attorney. I think you have to have, and no offense to anyone, you guys are all phenomenal. It's just, I think you have to have one person or else you're gonna have, there's gotta be one person who somebody reports to on the day-to-day operations. I'm confident that team can figure it out, but I think not to point one person is irresponsible. I was trying to get the discussion going here, but I do think, and Ben, I know, I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but I do think we've got to have one person. I'm comfortable with our chairwoman and whoever that person is. I'm sitting up Mr. Largetta, but I think you got to have one person.
And I would just say, whether it's one person or not, we've been through this before with Bob Lucy, and they really needed one person. There were issues underneath VP level that needed to be handled. It was kind of challenging at times, and especially at 9 months. But here's the thing, they're all talented, like all of them can handle it, but you kind of do need someone to be able to steer the ship in some capacity. And I think Charles, you've done a really good job of delegating high level responsibility.
Mr. Exquisite people.
I just said, I'll be short, but I think I don't disagree that the you need something to bring it to a head.
Yeah.
In the sense, but I kind of look at, I think what we're saying in this model would be your senior leadership team. The one person I see is the chairwoman. And not that you have to be here 24/7, but you would be, I don't know what that perfect schedule looks like, but there's got to be touch points that are regular and there for staff. But I have confidence in the senior staff. I think what we're saying though, in this model would be the one person would be you versus a staff member. And we would funnel up senior staff working with you. I know we had some board updates interface with staff this week, which was great. I think that model, and it's kind of hitting your touch points each week, kind of in our business, you have a standing, beginning of the week touch point meeting. I hope we can be closer to the 6-month mark, but, the other thing is we could try it this way with yourself, Chairwoman Bybee, and, if it's not working, come back to the board and we're gonna have to adjust.
Well, that would be uncomfortable. Sorry, Charlie.
Well, no, I think it would come from you saying, look, this is the time
Someone
commitment.
that's in the building.
Thank you, Mr. Sabaka. Ms. Keel.
And so I think we've all decided that we don't think an external person is warranted, right? So the question is more, do we want an internal point interim or no interim with the senior team at the helm? I would like to hear from Charles on what his thoughts are. We've all agreed that the senior team knows what they're doing. They can execute in their areas, right? And we've already all decided that what the signing authority is going to be like. So outside of those two areas, I would like to hear from Charles on anything that you can think of that would slip through the cracks or would be a concern as to like why we would need an internal 1-point person that the team, that the 4 leaders or 5 leaders couldn't handle on their own.
Thank you. As I said before, I think all these folks are really talented here. And I think it's, it'll be a bit of a challenge. Instead of putting one internal person and having any politics or challenge, and whether it's Mike or Christina or Trent or Courtney, I think it's easier. You can go either way. I think it's easier to put Charlene if she has the time that can have a weekly meeting and do it. I think they're all qualified. Mike's qualified, Christina's qualified, they're all qualified to do it internally. It's what this board wants. For me, she's got to hit her numbers. He's got to hit his numbers. He's got millions of dollars to do. They all get along. We've met weekly for years. I think that, I didn't ask each of the members or a lot of them if they were interested, and no one really said they really want that. And I think sitting in this chair is not easy. And I think as long as Charlene has the time, I think it's a good short-term solution. I think to Ben's point, 6 to 9 months is what you're talking about, because the longer you take to hire someone, a firm, now you gotta find the bodies, get them in here. By the way, and if you get to December, anybody that's gonna be a CEO is worried about their compensation at the end of the year and a bonus, and that might kick it a few extra months. That's why you might turn it into 9 months. So a timing would also play into that as well. It's how fast this board and a search.
I actually think there might be more like risk reward, and I think there actually might be more risk in appointing an internal person than the other. Because we want them focused on their job, and then God forbid there's some kind of drama or there's a conflict of interest or whatever, and they all do such a great job. Like, I would hate for appointing someone and something to go awry for that to affect their current job and what they're doing in the future. And then I don't know if there's a conflict of interest with bonuses and I don't know. And I also think that appointing someone and trying to pull it back if something goes bad would be no good, as opposed to appointing you and then being like, oh my gosh, we need somebody, and then having somebody that feels a little bit more safer than appointing someone internally and then having to pull that back or something like that.
And you know what, not having talked to folks and no one really telling me they really wanted it. I think for any of that senior staff, talk them offline and see if before anybody's put on the spot and uncomfortable here, which is always uncomfortable in public meetings when you do this stuff. If your guys are gonna go down that road, do that privately and away from here.
Well, I wonder, can they submit to you, Ben?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
have
so,
them submit to you, and then you find out who really wants to do it, and I think that that's fair. We've done it in the past. Jennifer Cunningham did a fantastic job. And the team works really, really well together. None of them are here to malign each other. They've been, I don't know, how long have you been here, Ben?
12.5 years.
Okay, there you go. How long have you been here?
6.5.
How long have you been here? Well, okay. And Trent, how long?
Short time.
So I'm saying, like, this is a group that gets along and does what they need to do. They're successful. And so I just know that they'll do the best they can be. However, I think, Ben, I don't know, but don't you have to go back when someone makes a motion? How does that work?
well, so we're not agendized to make a motion to bring a
Okay.
particular candidate back. So what we're agendized to is, do you want
To do
an
that.
interim or do you not? That's really the big decision that the board needs to make today, right now.
I need to, I haven't, we can stop for a second. I have not heard a word from Commissioner Hill. I'm sorry. Commissioner Hill, can you add your 2 cents to our conversation?
Well, it sounds like there's an opportunity for the board to have a think on this for another month. And if we bring back names or folks speak to Ben about their interests, then that can be considered. And then we have some frank conversations with you, Madam Chair, about whether you've got a plan on what this would look like if you were going to do this. So to me, I think I don't want to kick the can down another month, but we do have another month to, have a think on this as a board. For me, I'm probably the newest member, but I always think there's retired folks who worked in government that we could pull in and they could do it. But that doesn't sound like the will of the board, so that's okay. And so I'm open to both models that folks are talking about, and perhaps we come back in that month with both names, and then you, Madam Chairwoman, with a plan if you were to proceed with doing it yourself, and how long you think you could hang on. Honestly, I couldn't do it, but if you think you can, and maybe you could do it for 3 months, but you don't want to do it for 6, and then we have a 3-month evaluation. So that's where I'm at.
Mr. Murdoch.
I remember the days when Bob was stressed because he had to run around and staff needed an answer that he was in DC. I just remember those days as a board member. So I want to reiterate that you're signing on for duty. Second part of that is, which if that's the way we go. Second part of that is this team is so tight. I think it's almost like our finance committee. We were tight with Stephen as the spokesman. All you need is this little group, and they got a spokesman that comes and says, hey, Charlene, or speaks for the group, or they collectively meet and say, it's easy when you come in the building. This is what we're really keeping with. So that's all. I just want to make it really simple. You need a spokesman, or you need somebody. They're all equal. They're all VPs. They're all great. But at some point, it's this job. It's moving. It's the window's moving all the time.
Yeah, I think the way this item was written constricts us a little bit, because I think everybody is saying we don't want an external interim, we want internal, but then we're not allowed to discuss anybody. And yet we're trying to discuss somebody, and you're saying that has to wait another month. I don't know if there's the latitude to just say, just have a motion to say we've agreed that it should be an interim internal leadership configuration. And I'm with Jessica. If it's Mr. Larragetta, that's fine. I think we're spending a lot of time praising the talent that we have. And understanding that we don't need someone external to come in. And yet the way this is written, we can't discuss an individual.
Right.
So is there any way, abiding by open meeting law, that we can just move this forward so we're not kicking the can to July and leaving the team wondering what happens next? We have Jessica having tried to make a motion that it is one person, and I tend to think while the group is great, we always need the one person is willing to be on the hot seat if the others are concerned about something. Charlene, you are highly competent, but you're not in the building, and we probably can't expect you to be. So if there's a way around the way this was written to make this happen today.
I'll make that motion, though, that's
I
why.
know, and that's.
Can I
We're
need
trying
to
to walk, we're stepping on eggshells here
Okay.
because we're concerned.
Yeah, if you can
about
hold
this.
up just a second, I do want our legal advice, because I don't want us in trouble.
Right, and so the reason it's written this way is because we can't have that discussion without providing notice and agendizing those people. And so I think, if I can try to help move this along a little bit, I think what the motion is direction to myself and the chair to have the discussion and to come back at the next meeting, whether it's regular meeting or special meeting, with a list of names to consider for appointment as interim president CEO. So to answer the question, the board does want an interim appointed. That discussion would be at the next meeting, and in between now and then, the chair and I could have discussion, make sure people are interested, make sure they're willing to be considered. We can agendize them at the next meeting, and then the board can have the discussion of who that should be.
So Ben, they can go to you and say, I would be interested.
Yes.
Okay.
It can come directly, it can come from board members.
So the motion cannot be amended to say an internal.
Okay, that's work.
I think at this point that it's clear what the board's preference is. But if a board member calls me between now and then and says, I've got a great external candidate, I want him on the list, I think it's fair to put him on the list for the discussion in July. If I'm that external candidate and I watch this meeting,
Just provide a list of candidates. Right here in the agenda item, it says.
right, but we're
It
not,
is being
it's,
asked to provide a list of candidates for the interim CEO position for consideration at a future meeting.
so it's not, that's not a motion, that's just a list of names. So we're gonna take a motion to have an interim. And then if you want to put names out publicly, we can create a list. And if those people are willing, we can discuss them in the next meeting.
Yeah, so we can provide the names, if we have names today,
Okay,
we can provide a name, but they cannot be discussed. Because that's a noticing, legally noticing before you pros and cons of anybody. Internal, and so then to internal, it applies to internal or external, we're not talking about external. So even if it's all internal candidates, whether it's staff or whether it was me, that still applies.
Correct.
The list,
Jessica's already provided the names, that's kind of.
and I'm saying that, here's the thing, you guys, we're gonna go out for a national search, I'm not gonna be here. We need to agree on an interim CEO. I'm sorry, like, that's part of the dysfunction. Like, I'm just trying to move us along. I think we have great staff. I threw out a name. I'd like to have this back at a special meeting. I'm sorry, because we're putting a new board who doesn't know these folks on the hot seat. So we all need to get along and move this forward. We gotta look at our own board. I'm sorry, and move this forward. If somebody else has another recommendation, I'm all here. I was just throwing it out there. And I think it's dangerous not to have one person. And I'm saying to work with our chairwoman, an elected official. So if any other board member, sorry, not trying to be frustrated, has a name, fine. But I'm just trying to move this along. I think it's irresponsible to leave it to another board who doesn't know these folks. Come on, we've done so good, well, this meeting, coming to consensus on everything. Let's do this. Let's move this forward. I'm making a plea to this board. It's like, come on.
well, can I, okay, I'll get right to you. So in answer to that, Jessica, I get your frustration, and it's not that we don't want to make a decision today. We are tied by a legal requirement that whoever the name, and you could throw more names out, she's right. Today, we could throw a couple more names out. To be discussed at a special meeting, if that's the wishes of the board. It could even be a Zoom meeting if we don't want to come together again, but that we by law cannot, whether it's anybody, any of the VPs, whether it's me, whether it's someone else, we can't legally, we can't make a decision and even discuss merits, pros and cons of anybody. That's what our attorney is advising us.
right, so
That our hands are tied because of the law, not because of any of the board that doesn't want to do that.
Let's get the names out there.
Today.
Let's just.
We're not talking
Anybody that wants to names.
We're not talking pros and cons.
Yeah.
We're just saying,
Move on.
if you're not comfortable naming somebody in public right now, you can reach out to me and they can be included on the list.
But no
between
one
now.
said they have any other name. I think that's what's frustrating.
That's what we're trying to
Just put out.
Walking on eggshells.
Sorry.
When we-
Thank you, Anne. I really, really appreciate it. I do immensely. Anne and I were here when we went through this with Bob. And the biggest challenge for Bob always said is, I'm having like 7, 8 people come to me. And it's really frustrating. I think to your point, you need one point of contact. And then the other thing I would say, and just for clarification, and Ben, maybe this is something, that person also, maybe if the board has concern that they're not going to submit for the CEO position. You know, I don't know, maybe that helps a little bit better, but
Yeah.
Charlotte, we can't keep going around and around, and we gotta get through that. And this is how you're gonna build strength with this board, so you gotta kind of, you know, move us along.
Are
What
we
we need-
violating the
okay.
law by saying Jessica has a motion, we're not discussing the person, we're not discussing race qualification.
That's what I thought we were doing.
We are approving an interim CEO named Mike Largetta. Is that permissible
No.
today?
No.
Okay.
So listen, so let me try to. We're sort of talking. So I think the motion is a motion, and it's not, it's public meeting law. It's what we have to abide by.
We're being very public.
So I think the motion is direction to myself and the chair to bring back at a future meeting, and it sounds like the board would like a special meeting
Yes.
with a list of potential candidates for an interim president CEO position.
Yeah.
Which would
And
indicate that the board, because you brought up initially that we were looking at, does the board feel the need for an interim or do we not? So based on discussion, the board is saying, yes, we do want an interim.
So why
And
don't
this
we
would
do
be
a
the way-
motion like that, like Ben, that you just said, let's do that motion.
Yes.
And then the second motion, let's make it clean. Do the motion. And then the second motion, you tell me, Ben, is if the board feels comfortable submitting names so you have them, then that's a separate motion.
And we don't even need a separate motion. So if we do that first motion, we're good.
Perfect.
Mike's name's been thrown out. If anybody else wants to throw another name, we can do that after we approve the motion.
So she motion.
So this goes smoothly. If there's other names, let's just put them on the table today, instead of having another.
I don't think
Well,
we
you
can
have
do
to have
that
a
today.
special meeting.
I don't
You
think
have
we
to
can.
have a special meeting.
But we can put
Yes.
names under this.
Is there anybody else with other names?
But we
Yes.
have
Just because that's.
We can also put out other names outside of this public meeting.
Correct.
After we've reached out to a couple people that may be interested or may not want to. I would put out all 5 of the VPs. I want all 5 of the VPs on the list there. I want to see. Four, sorry. Well, 4. of the VPs.
So, but Andy's putting all 4 names up.
I want all 4 names.
Command the motion.
And so we have, you need to repeat that again. Or Jessica, this was your
Yeah.
motion. Do you want what Ben, how Ben just stated what that motion will be?
I have never seen.
I'll go ahead and make that motion. I want to say this. I want to say we're putting our VPs in a horrible position,
Yeah.
putting them all up there. And
Absolutely
we're gonna
wrong.
cause this,
It's
Yeah.
wrong.
cause this.
Yeah.
And this is wrong.
Yeah.
This is not how I want to
Absolutely
lead
wrong.
this board. That's why I said, I put out a name. If someone else, this is a public body, put it out there.
I just did.
Don't put our staff
just
in
did.
a position.
He did.
Don't put.
You
the-
put a name out, I could put,
Oh,
we could put these up,
But we're putting all 4 names out.
because I think it should be a council that moves forward with it, not a thing.
Okay, well, we've got 2 opinions. We can vote. Opinions. Yeah,
Well,
not
no,
today.
Charlie,
No.
none of them are interested, so that's what I want to know, is how do we find out who is, if they're even willing to do it? I haven't.
So-
Okay, just
so
vote.
I have-
Charlene, you're the chair. You've got to command the board. You've got to vote. When someone throws a motion out there, that's the Robert Rules of Order. So let's move on. And
I know
whether
it's
it
Robert's
floats
rules of
or
order.
doesn't float, then
I-
we move on. But we can't keep doing this.
I
This
have
is super
2, I have
embarrassing.
two,
There's not 2 motions.
No.
not 2
One
motions. One motion that
motion
we
has
are
to do with
for.
names. The motion has nothing
internal.
to do with names.
Okay, that's an internal candidate, names to come forward. But we do want it in from CEO. I need a second on that motion. I have the motion. Ms. Rosa, you comfortable with that motion?
Yeah,
Okay.
we want an internal CEO. Yes,
Okay, and we want it internal.
yes.
Okay, so an internal interim CEO. I need a second for that motion. I have a second from Ms. Silver. All those in favor?
Wait,
please
wait,
say
wait,
aye.
wait, and I don't mean to beat this to death, but for clarification, man. Does it have to specify it can only be internal at that point, or are we just saying we want an interim?
Internal.
CEO?
Yeah, we're just doing internal right now.
Motion's for an internal.
My motion for an internal CEO from our staff. That's
Okay.
what
And we've had several people bring up internal. So I guess if anyone wants someone external, You wouldn't be voting on the motion if you don't, okay. So it is specific to internal and we do want it in front. That's what the motion is. Motion and a second. Are we good? Okay, all those in favor with that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, one opposition, Mr. Quagga. Everyone else is past the motion and names can come forward.
Maybe I misunderstood.
And we will discuss if we're going to do, if we'll do this on a Zoom meeting, to happen. And to your point, Jessica, I agree. The new board coming on, that's a tough decision. So I think we need to
That
make
was
this
part of my
decision.
motion. I'm sorry that it is a special meeting, so.
Okay, yeah, and that's
We
just
can't do this.
well, and as chair, I can call a special meeting and I will.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair,
Thank you.
Yes,
if we trust all this great work this team has done with Charles' leadership, if we trust him and we trust him, this is easy to make a decision.
right.
You would think, you would really
If
think.
we trust the
We
team,
have an
Well,
opportunity.
we do, but to everyone's point in the frustration, we're frustrated about an open meeting law that we cannot violate. And I'm sorry this had to keep going around. I think the motion is good. We know where we're moving forward. I will work on calling a special meeting and taking additional names either to Mr. Kennedy or to myself. And we will, we'll notice that and so we can get the ball rolling, because we don't meet till the fourth, Thursday. We have 5 weeks, almost.
Yes, 5 weeks.
Till the next meeting. And we definitely before the end of July, want to make this decision. So we'll be in touch with
Madam Chair,
everyone. Yes.
I will be the dead horse just for 1 second. So if I understand, we are approving, we've amended this by saying we are approving an interim CEO who's internal, but we can't say a name.
Which I would think on here, Ben, you could.
Could you just amend this to
No,
say?
you can't change your agenda once it's posted.
But you said names on here, so.
So I said, give me names to bring back at the next
For
meeting.
consideration.
We can't vote on somebody today. We absolutely cannot vote because to appoint somebody to that position.
Again, but you could, we could put him on
And I've
the
taken
agenda
names.
for a future agenda. That's what
Right.
I'm saying. We could have put his name or whoever on a future agenda. Yeah.
Right.
So we have the names and names also, what can come to Mr. Kennedy.
Because there,
We do have names. If there are other names, we will be coming back at a special meeting to vote on the names that are presented. Okay, but unfortunately, open meeting law has tied our hands, so it's
So
not,
we're doing it before the end of June.
we could, yes, so we'll still have this board. Yeah, we would have to do it before June.
As long as you provide the proper notice.
Can we do it? I said you. Can we just get this done? No, it's open meeting. So to appoint somebody as the interim president
3
CEO,
days notice.
we have to name them in the agenda. So we'll have an agenda item to appoint X person.
So do
We
you
have notice requirements.
us to put that on the next?
No.
No motion, you just,
We're done.
No,
We're done.
we're done.
Come on.
we're
Thank
done.
you for trying.
We're done. We're finished with the dead horse right now. So, let's go on to E3, review discussion, possible action regarding contract extensions for BBK Reno Tahoe's agency of record and partner agency for paid media. Is this Christina?
Can we do?
Second.
Do a
Do you guys need 5 minutes? We good?
I'm sorry.
I asked for vodka.
I said second.
We are on E3.
She got it.
We're on E3.
Oh, my God.
Okay, Christina. Do you want here? Do you want there?
I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I already seconded.
So we've got motion.
Yes, motion and a second.
Discussion.
You just lost the board.
Whatever you decided. Everybody voted.
They're talking about for this item.
Oh, on E3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get in the game.
Well, everybody's talking at the same time.
That's what I'm saying.
So, you know what, you guys, if we could get one at a time, and if I'm not looking at you, which I was trying to move around again. Yeah, I've got a lot of conversations, so I'm not hearing.
Start one and go around.
So E3, Madam Chair, I'm
Yes.
sorry, if there was a lot of commotion. E3, I was just saying, I'm comfortable with it. I'll make a motion.
Second. For the
Okay,
second.
I have a motion and a second, open for discussion does the board have questions or concerns or anything you need from Christina, who's ready with the whole presentation, I think? No,
Just one quick.
okay, Mr.
question.
Squaga?
Thank you. I know, I just want to touch base on this. You guys went out to bid, correct?
Correct.
Your recommendation with the transition time that we're in is just to sit tight. If we want to move forward on going back out to bid, what kind of notice would we, let's say we have a new CEO direction in 7 months. What would, if we needed to make a move then, could we?
We could, I believe, and I'm looking at legal, but this is professional services. We went out to RFP and my recommendation is to pause it and to extend BBK for a year. They've done a phenomenal job over the past several years in moving us forward. And to your point, I think with the transition, I think it's just the right time to hit the pause button. And when that new person comes in, I think we sit down with that person and we talk with them on what do they want to do? Do they want to reissue a whole new RFP, or do we want to look at the bids we've already received and move forward from there? I think it's up to that new person.
By the way, and you have an exit clause with BBK. Should the
Correct.
board want to do something
That's
different
kind of where it's going.
within the
Oh,
year?
yes.
So that's
There's a
built in.
30-day out.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. It's built.
Okay, and you do so that I can just touch, what Mr. Squaga was saying. You had to, on the RFP, you should have two agencies, BBK and another agency that is in an RFP with us. for
11
this.
submitted and then we
You
had
narrowed
narrowed
it
it
down
down.
to
There was
two.
an internal staff committee with
Okay.
sales and marketing. And we had heard some presentations, we reviewed them and we had narrowed it down to 2, and that's where we decided to hit the bottom.
Okay, and BBK was one of the 2, but we have another agency also waiting.
Yes.
Okay, and we can, if we decided sooner than the 12 months, we got 30-day clause
Yes. There's
to
a.
step out.
Mhm.
Okay, just want to make sure it's clear. Mr. Murdoch.
We vetted this to the finance committee and we haven't shared there if we spoke. So I'm just sitting here thinking, we had no problem with what her proposal was to the finance committee. And if we'd have asked David, we probably could have got there. So I'm just trying to save everybody the headache why we seconded and made the motion, because we vetted it and we knew all this. And it was in the finance presentation.
No.
I thought we did. We talked to you about it.
Just in a discussion.
Yeah. Oh,
Not
okay.
necessarily.
Then Stephen and I
But it
sat with
was-
you.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes, yes.
I
Yeah.
think it was a board update.
Yeah.
But-
question.
Okay, Mr. Murdoch, are you finished?
Yeah, go.
Okay.
Done. I
Was there any
second.
other board discussion?
I'm the second.
I want to make sure everybody's spoken first. Thank you. Okay, I will call for the question. I have a motion and a second to accept the extension up to one year for BBK. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Did we lose Commissioner Hill? Okay. So we lost Commissioner Hill.
Yeah.
Okay, she's heading to the airport. Okay, E4. Review discussion and possible action to approve staff's recommendation to award an RFP for website search engine optimization. This is also Christina.
I just couldn't unmute myself. I am on the call. So on the last motion, I am here.
And you were a yay, a yes?
Yes, thank you. I apologize.
No problem, no problem. Thank you. If you could change the record. Madam Clerk. Okay, so item E4 on the website search engine optimization. I have a motion by Ms. Fraza.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion or questions?
Just a quick
Yes.
comment that Charles and I discussed in pre-board. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that the amount that is being asked to approve is higher than the amount that we've ever spent before, is my understanding for this email.
It's flat from this past year.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 years ago, it was at 80.
Okay.
During the pandemic, we did lower it,
Of course.
because,
Pre-pandemic?
it has gone up, yes, since 2019.
Okay, which is common, yeah.
And if I can just wait, it's a reasonable amount and you have to invest in this
Yes.
in order for that website to be successful. And it's not an outrageous amount.
Okay. Okay, so no other discussion. I've got a motion and I've got second was Who seconded?
Second again.
Did the mayor, did you
Mayor
seconded the motion, correct? Okay, so I have a motion and a second, no more discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving right along, E5. Review discussion and possible action to approve staff's recommendation to allocate certain expenditures for air service marketing, media, and education initiatives. I'm gonna let Mr. Kennedy address this. It's kind of more of a formality that we have to do today, but I'll have him explain why this is on our agenda.
Sure, so if there are any questions about the expenditures themselves, I'll with Ms. Ernie to answer those. But basically, through the goals that the board identified last fiscal year and the direction to staff, I think it was sort of implied that staff was authorized to use the air service funds for certain marketing expenditures. But as we went back and looked through the minutes and the record of the meetings, there were discussions to that effect, but the board never took actual action to approve it. And just to make sure everything is clean, going forward and going into next year, we're asking the board to basically ratify those expenditures out of the air service fund.
Do I have any questions?
Move to approve. And I'll tell you, the runway is open today, you guys. Some good news for JetBlue, for people and.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, got a motion by Mrs. Frost and a second by Mr. Esquaga.
With just one question, Ben, so will we need to do this every year this way?
So
We don't
at the last budget meeting, the discussion was, Ms. Ernie was gonna come back to the board in the future with sort of a plan for how those air service marketing funds are gonna be spent. So the board will approve those as they're spent and take actual action. This is just to sort of affirm what was done last year.
Okay, keep my
Did
second.
you have a question, Mr. Morrow?
No.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nobody's opposed. Please still have her, or she's gone now. Well, Alexis, are you still there? Okay. Okay, that's okay. E6, review discussion, possible action to approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 annual business plan.
So, yeah, I'll just kick it off. This, what you have is a draft. This is an initial run through. The information, and Ben can go into this a little bit more if we need to, but this is the draft. My suggestion is that the board reviews this document, comes back July to vote on it. There are numbers that need to be finalized on it. They were only suggestions, which I put in there. If they're not finalized and certainly needs to be vetted by the board, and I don't think that you want to go through that today. You can, but this is part of our strategic plan. This is what the board has asked us to do in 3 years. This is just year 2 of 3. And so my suggestion is that you embrace it and come back and vote specifically in July. With that, I can open the questions, or Ben can present it if we need to go into any more detail.
Ben, did you have anything more you wanted to add?
No, I think, really, this is just for recommendations and your information today. You got it. For the record. Ben McDonald, RSCVA for the record. So basically, we put this plan together for each of the 3 strategic years on that 3-year annual plan that was approved in May 2022. The focus of this right now that you guys should be looking at, that the board should be considering for the next 2 or 3 weeks before the July meeting, are specifically the measurable within those goals and tactics sections. Everything else, other than the lines designated as measurable, is already approved within that 3-year strategic plan. This is just basically a roadmap for the upcoming fiscal year 24. We've been working closely with staff on putting these pieces together, these action items together, and it will come back for final approval in July as it was last year. And really the focus is essentially what the 3-year plan laid out. We're getting more closely with community partners, expanding our research, and we're working on some resident sentiment research right now that we hope to come back within the next 3 or 4 months that the board can review. The facilities management portion of that as we aim to take back over control of our facilities. Air service, of course, which
everybody's very familiar with and moving forward with. Special events, especially as it relates to the Opportunity Fund, which we've also addressed today, and budget management. So again, a lot of what you see before you, this is a draft, will change. I can guarantee you'll have much more time to review this before the July meeting so that we can have an open discussion and you can make any specific recommendations. And we're open to recommendations now as well, should you have them, or if you have any questions, we are here to answer.
By the way, this is coming to you a little earlier than we did a year ago. So we wanted this for you guys to be able to digest, number one. Number two is I've asked my direct reports to provide their suggested goals for next year, which will go into the transition plan. This is not their goals. This is numbers that I threw out and I haven't sat with them. So once I do get their suggested goals, that will be in the transition plan that I provide.
Do you have any questions on this?
Questions. One is, there isn't a link in the PDF for this one. Is there a page number in the supporting? I mean, I know it's right here, but as far as electronically, do we have it?
It was sent yesterday afternoon
As a separate? Okay,
Yeah,
separate.
separate
Okay.
packet.
Got it. And then, the goals for when would those goals need to be approved?
Normally it's done in July with the CEO contract, or the CEO agreement, the goals for the next year. And so we are ahead of that process right now. And so,
Are you gonna be approving goals prior?
no, I didn't think it was appropriate. I did what
I'm not, it's fine. I just
Yeah.
wanted to know. So,
what I had made the recommendation, or what I had the agreement with the chair was that in the transition document, I would be providing input from all the direct reports.
Okay.
That the board would then help set those goals as part of an overall plan.
okay, so the board is gonna be approving
For the,
goals as part of.
for the interim CEO. but
I
it's-
just wanted to
yeah.
throw out that if an interim CEO is an internal leader, they shouldn't be approved. They shouldn't be approving their own goals, right? So just something for us to think about as we move forward with this interim position,
Yeah.
that,
Didn't we as a board though, as far as down, we're approving.
I think so.
Yeah, what happens, you guys approve my goals and then it then ladders down to the staff in terms of what Mike is from CEO, then down to marketing and
Staff roles roll up to the CEO.
yes.
correct. As much as the quantitative large scale goals are.
Yeah, I get your point too, though, Sharon. Okay, Mr. Swagan.
No, I like the direction of having a month to look at, receiving it yesterday. I think it's saying, let's put it to the July meeting, but we have time to chew on it versus taking any action, and makes a lot of sense.
And in that staff report, we also addressed that there was not a requirement for any approvals, but rather informational discussion. I want to make sure that directionally, we're giving you all the information that you need to make the best decision you can in July.
Okay. So we don't need any notice. We're gonna sit
You
here
don't
with
need action. Yeah,
informational,
bring it back in July.
informational item, to be brought back to the board at our July meeting. Thank you, Minister. Thank you. Okay. We already did the seventh, we did F1, we did F2. We are on item G. Board member announcements, reports, updates. Ms. Frassa.
Well, I've been with you guys on the runway, which is really good news, and I just want to personally thank Charles. I look at the air service agenda item, we asked you to do that, the other agenda items that we asked you to do, and I really appreciate you working till the end, and till the very last day. It looks like we're gonna have another special meeting, so I thought this is gonna be our last, but I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate it.
I think I'll save my sentiments for a special meeting.
Okay,
You can get out,
any other,
you can get in, but you can't get out.
so any other board comments? Okay, I'll close item G. Comments from the floor by the public. Madam Clerk?
None at this time, thank you.
Okay, so guess what? My favorite part.
Public comment.
Huh?
I'd like to give public comment when you're ready.
Oh, I just called. Okay, sorry. I just, absolutely go.
So first of all, I want to say thank you so much, Anne, Shannon, and Jessica, for your service. It was really an honor to serve with you, and I'll tell you why. I was the only female here for many years. And I'm very disappointed that there were not other female names to be considered for our new board members. So I just put that out there because I think it's important that women are at the table. And I just honestly, I think we all appreciate your service and you have done a tremendous job. So thank you for giving back to this organization. I'm gonna miss you, but Charlene, I guess, and
Alexis.
Alexis, and I will
Disagree with that.
yeah,
And the chamber.
miss you, just so you know, but I would just say that, I always want to put it out there, I think it's really important, it's still, there's still inequities with women at the table. 17%, it's about 17% women are paid less than men to do the same job today. And since 1979, women have been the majority of students on the campuses across the country at our universities. And today we have less of a voice than we did. So I just want to say thank you. You women are amazing. I appreciate it.
Well, and congratulations on your selection as president of the conference.
Well, that takes all of us, and that's because I'm really fortunate that I have all of you guys to lift me up. And then I want to say thank you to our team here. You guys are wonderful. Thank you for the flowers. That was so incredibly thoughtful and kind. Like I said, I think you guys pushed me over. And then lastly, I just want to apologize. I hope today was not too uncomfortable. But we're gonna do better. We're gonna do better as we move forward. We're gonna do better to bring in consensus and work together. So thank you. But I'm gonna miss you girls. So why?
Well, and just in closing, I would like to thank especially our members of our CEO. And I think I felt we had good consensus today. And the one item that was frustrating for everybody, including myself, really open meeting law kind of created a situation that was not ideal, but everything else we moved forward today felt good, and it felt like we were doing what we're supposed to be doing and moving forward, and we moved forward in a good amount of time. It's 11:07, and so if I have no other comments, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn.